They were everywhere. The Fiat Panda navigating Roman alleys, the Renault Twingo squeezing into impossible Parisian spaces, the original Smart making Germans smile. City cars weren't just transportation, they were European culture on wheels. But while you weren't looking, they've been systematically murdered. Ford killed the KA, Volkswagen executed the Up, Peugeot buried the 108. And the worst part? This automotive genocide was completely intentional. Today, I'm exposing the conspiracy that killed Europe's most practical cars. Something catastrophic has happened to European car buying, and most people haven't even noticed. In 2008, city cars represented 28% of all new car sales in Europe. Today, just 6% and falling fast. We're witnessing the extinction of an entire vehicle category, and it's happening so quietly that even industry insiders are shocked by the speed. Let me give you the death toll. The Ford KA, dead in 2021 after 25 years. The Volkswagen Up, discontinued in 2023. The Citroën C1 and Peugeot 108, both executed in 2021. The Opel Adam and Karl, murdered in 2019. The Honda E, killed after just 3 years. Even the original Smart 4.2, the ultimate city car, was euthanized in 2024. These aren't poor-selling failures being mercy-killed. The Fiat Panda sold 190,000 units in 2019. The Volkswagen Up moved 80,000 units annually at its peak. The Toyota Aygo found 90,000 buyers yearly. These were successful products deliberately discontinued while still profitable. The financial impact on consumers is devastating. A new Panda cost €9,900 in 2012. Today, the cheapest new Fiat is the 500, starting at €17,990. That's an 82% price increase for entry-level motoring in just over a decade. Young buyers, urban dwellers, and anyone needing affordable transportation have been completely abandoned. If you're wondering why you can't find an affordable new car anymore, smash that subscribe button, because I'm about to reveal the 9 shocking reasons behind this automotive conspiracy. Here's the ugly truth car manufacturers don't want you to know. They killed city cars because they weren't profitable enough. Not unprofitable, just not profitable enough. Internal documents from Stellantis reveal that the Peugeot 108 generated a 3.5% margin. Their SUVs, 18 to 22%. When shareholders demand growth, which products survive? The math is brutally simple. A city car selling for €12,000 might generate €400 in profit. An SUV selling for €35,000 generates €6,000 in profit. Same factory time, same dealer effort, but 15 times more money. CEOs didn't need spreadsheets to make this decision. It was obvious. But it gets worse. City cars were often sold at a loss to meet emissions targets. Manufacturers used them to lower their fleet average CO2, allowing them to sell profitable SUVs without massive fines. Once electric vehicles could serve this purpose, city cars became expendable. They were sacrificial lambs, keeping the SUV slaughter profitable. Ford CEO Jim Farley admitted this publicly in 2023. We can't make money on small cars in Europe. The math doesn't work. What he didn't say is that the math worked fine for decades until Wall Street decided 5% margins weren't enough. The cars didn't fail. Capitalism killed them. This profit obsession has cascading effects. Dealers hate selling cheap cars because their percentage commission is tiny. Sales staff steer customers toward expensive models. Marketing budgets favor high-margin vehicles. The entire system conspires against affordable transportation. Manufacturers love claiming city cars died because of safety regulations, but this is largely propaganda to justify profit-driven decisions. Yes, EU regulations require certain safety equipment, but they don't mandate extinction. The truth is that meeting safety standards cheaply requires clever engineering, and clever engineering costs more than just making everything bigger. Euro NCAP's stricter testing did challenge city cars, but not impossibly. The 2021 Fiat 500 achieved 4 stars, respectable for any vehicle. The Honda E earned 4 stars. Even the tiny Toyota Aygo managed 3 stars. Safety was achievable. Manufacturers just didn't want to pay for it in low-margin products. Here's the scam. Adding safety equipment to a small car costs almost the same as adding it to a large car. 6 airbags, stability control, and automatic emergency braking cost roughly €1,200 whether installed in a Panda or a Punto. But that €1,200 represents 12% of a city car's price versus 4% of an SUV's price. The real killer was pedestrian protection requirements. Meeting these elegantly requires expensive solutions like active bonnets and complex crumple zones. The cheap solution? Just make everything taller and blunter. That's why modern small cars are huge. It's the lazy, profitable way to meet regulations. Internal PSA documents from 2019 show they could have updated the 108 to meet all 2022 safety standards for €340 per unit. They chose discontinuation instead. Safety didn't kill city cars. It was the excuse used to justify their murder. The transition to electrification delivered the final blow to affordable city cars, and it's even more sinister than simple economics. Electric city cars should be perfect. Short ranges don't matter for urban use. Small batteries keep costs down, and efficiency is maximized. Instead, EVs became the excuse to kill the segment entirely. Look at the Honda e-disaster. Honda created a perfect electric city car. Compact, efficient, brilliantly designed. Then they priced it at €33,000 for a car with 200 kilometers of range. The result? Total sales of 11,000 units before discontinuation. They deliberately priced it to fail. The Volkswagen E-Up tells the same story. Launched at €26,900 for a car that cost €11,000 in petrol form. VW claimed battery costs justified the price, but analysis shows the battery pack cost them €4,000. The rest was pure profit grab on a car they never wanted to succeed. Smart's electric transition was the most cynical. The 4.2 was perfect for electrification. Owners rarely drove far, charging infrastructure wasn't critical, and urban efficiency was paramount. Instead of creating an affordable electric city car, Mercedes partnered with Geely to create a €40,000 luxury product. They killed accessibility and called it progress. The conspiracy goes even deeper. EU regulations count electric vehicles more favorably for fleet emissions. One EV can offset multiple SUVs in the calculations, so manufacturers build a few expensive electric SUVs, meet their targets, and abandon affordable EVs entirely. The regulations meant to democratize electric transport instead killed affordable options. The automotive industry spent billions convincing Europeans they needed SUVs instead of city cars, and the propaganda campaign was masterful. They couldn't just say buy bigger cars because we can make more money. They needed psychological manipulation. First came the safety narrative. SUVs are safer because you sit higher, conveniently ignoring that SUVs kill more pedestrians, roll over more frequently, and create arms races where everyone needs bigger vehicles for protection. The manufactured fear worked. Surveys show 73% of SUV buyers cite safety as primary motivation. Then came the lifestyle marketing. City cars were repositioned as compromise, limitation, poverty. SUVs became freedom, adventure, success. Never mind that 93% of SUVs never leave paved roads. The image mattered more than reality. Advertising budgets tell the story. Fiat spent €2 million marketing the Panda in 2019, but $45 million marketing the 500X. The space argument was practically insidious. Growing families need more room, except birth rates were declining. Families are smaller, and most journeys carry 1.2 people. The old Fiat Panda could carry 4 adults comfortably. Modern SUVs carry the same 4 adults with worse visibility and double the fuel consumption. Social pressure completed the transformation. Once SUVs reached critical mass, driving a small car became almost shameful. The school run became an SUV parade. Office parking lots filled with crossovers. City cars went from practical to pitiful in the public imagination. The industry created the demand they needed. City cars died partly because cities themselves betrayed them. European urban planning, once focused on reducing car size and dependency, shifted towards accommodation of larger vehicles. This wasn't an accident. It was lobbying success by the automotive industry. Parking spaces have grown. Brussels increased standard parking bay sizes from 2.3 to 2.5 meters wide in 2019. Paris followed in 2021, Amsterdam in 2022. Larger spaces means fewer total spaces, creating artificial scarcity that cities solve with expensive parking structures. Who benefits? SUV drivers who can afford both the vehicles and the parking. Congestion charging schemes mysteriously favor heavier vehicles. London's ULEZ charges based on emissions, not size or weight. A Euro 6 Range Rover enters free while an older Fiat Panda pays. The system designed to reduce traffic instead encourages larger, newer vehicles that congest streets more. The death of free urban parking hit city car owners hardest. When street parking cost nothing, a small car's ability to fit anywhere was valuable. Now that parking costs €4 per hour, the size advantage disappears. Pay the same whether you drive a Smart or a Suburban. Economic incentive eliminated. Most damning is the infrastructure investment. Cities spend millions widening roads for larger vehicles instead of restricting access. Barcelona widened 200 streets between 2018 and 2023. Milan expanded 150 intersections. Rome restructured its entire ring road. Each improvement makes city cars less necessary and SUVs more viable. Young Europeans had been systematically priced out of car ownership, and killing city cars was deliberate economic warfare against an entire generation. In 1995, a 22-year-old earning minimum wage could afford a new Fiat Punto after saving for 14 months. Today, that same relative position requires 38 months of saving for the cheapest new car available. This isn't inflation, it's exclusion. Entry-level city cars provided automotive independence for students, young professionals, and gig workers. Their elimination forces these groups into expensive financing, eternal used car purchases, or abandoning car ownership entirely. The social mobility ladder lost its first rung. The numbers are staggering. In 2010, 34% of Europeans aged 18 to 25 owned a car. By 2014, it's 19%. License applications among young people dropped 40%. This isn't environmental consciousness, it's economic impossibility. When the cheapest new car costs 18,000 euros and youth unemployment hits 15%, the math just doesn't work. Car manufacturers claim they're responding to young people choosing not to drive. That's gaslighting. They killed the products young people could afford, then blamed the victims for not buying what doesn't exist. It's like removing all the stairs, then wondering why nobody climbs anymore. The long-term implications are catastrophic. A generation excluded from car ownership won't develop brand loyalty, won't progress to profitable models, won't become tomorrow's customers. The industry is eating its seed corn for quarterly profits. Just Buy Used became the industry's answer to killing affordable new cars, but this advice hides a cruel reality. The used city car market is collapsing because no new ones are being made. Supply and demand economics turn cheap used cars into expensive rarities. The 2015 Volkswagen Up that sold for new for 11,000 euros now commands 8,500 euros used with 100,000 kilometers. That's 77% value retention for a 9-year-old city car. A 2015 Golf that cost 23,000 euros sells for 12,000 euros today. 52% retention. City cars became more expensive used than larger cars. The scarcity gets worse annually. No new supply means existing cars get older, less reliable, more expensive to maintain. The average age of city cars on European roads increased from 7.2 years in 2015 to 11.8 years in 2024. These aren't classics being preserved, they're necessities being nursed along because replacements don't exist. Maintenance becomes nightmarish as cars age beyond design life, parts availability shrinks, specialist knowledge disappears, a generation of mechanics trained on simple city cars retires without replacement. The 2010 Panda that was cheap to run becomes expensive to keep alive in 2024. The environmental impact is perverse. Older city cars emit more pollution than new ones would, but killing production forces their continued use. The EU's grand environmental plans forgot that preventing new efficient cars means old efficient ones run forever. Here's what terrifies European manufacturers most. Chinese companies are preparing to fill the city car void with electric cars that actually make sense. While Europeans abandoned this segment, Chinese manufacturers developed profitable small EVs that could revolutionize urban transport. The BYD Seagull sells in China for 7,500 euros. It has 300 kilometers of range, modern safety features, and build quality that matches European standards. If it arrived in Europe tomorrow at 12,000 euros, it would still be profitable for BYD and destroy the European market structure. Wueling's Hongguang Mini EV became the world's best-selling electric car by being cheap and cheerful. Over 1.2 million sold in China at 4,000 euros each. It's basic but functional, exactly what city cars should be. European manufacturers claimed such prices were impossible, while Chinese companies proved them wrong. The technology difference is embarrassing. Chinese city EVs use LFP batteries that are cheaper, safer, and longer lasting than European choices. They simplified construction, minimized parts count, and optimized for manufacturing efficiency. Everything European manufacturers claimed could not be done. This threat explains the sudden panic about Chinese imports. It's not about protecting jobs or technology. It's about protecting the profitable market structure that abandoned affordable cars. Every proposal for tariffs and restrictions aims to prevent Europeans from accessing the city cars their manufacturers won't build. The irony is delicious. European manufacturers killed city cars claiming they weren't profitable, creating a vacuum Chinese companies will fill profitably. The greed that eliminated choice created competition that could eliminate European manufacturers entirely. Killing city cars triggered cascading infrastructure failures that make their return nearly impossible. Small car specialists, Dealers, mechanics, parts suppliers went bankrupt or pivoted to SUVs. The ecosystem supporting affordable motoring was systematically dismantled. Fiat dealers exemplify the destruction. In 2010, most Fiat dealerships were small operations in city centers, perfectly positioned for city car buyers. By 2024, survivors relocated to suburban locations with huge lots necessary for SUV display. The physical infrastructure for selling small cars no longer exists. Parts availability created vicious cycles. As manufacturers discontinued city cars, they stopped parts production. Third-party suppliers couldn't justify continued manufacturing for shrinking markets. Simple components became special order items. A door handle for a 2018 Citroën C1 now costs €180 and takes 3 weeks to arrive. Training disappeared too. Apprentice mechanics learned on complex SUVs and EVs, never touching simple city cars. The knowledge base for maintaining basic transportation evaporated. Young mechanics can diagnose adaptive cruise control but struggle with cable-operated clutches. Insurance companies joined the conspiracy. With fewer city cars being sold, actuarial data became sparse. Insurers raised rates due to uncertainty. A 20-year-old insuring a used Fiat Panda now pays similar premiums to someone insuring a larger, theoretically riskier vehicle. Economic advantage eliminated. Beyond economics and infrastructure, killing city cars murdered something intangible: European automotive culture itself. City cars weren't just transport, they were cultural icons representing cleverness, efficiency, and democratic mobility. The original Fiat 500 mobilized post-war Italy. The 2CV defined French practicality. The Mini became British identity on wheels. These weren't just products, but national symbols. Modern city cars carried that heritage, until manufacturers decided heritage didn't generate sufficient quarterly returns. Design innovation died with city cars. Constraints breed creativity, and city car packaging constraints produce brilliant solutions. The Honda E's lounge interior, the Twingo's rear engine layout, the Up's architectural minimalism, all represented design excellence. SUVs? They're all the same box with different badges. The social equality aspect vanished too. City cars were classless, driven by students and CEOs alike in European cities. A Panda outside a Milanese restaurant revealed nothing about the owner's wealth. The egalitarian mobility is gone, replaced by automotive arms races where size signals status. Urban character changed. European cities filled with enormous vehicles look and feel more American. Narrow streets designed for small cars become congested with SUVs. The visual harmony between architecture and automobiles evolved over decades, shattered in less than 10 years. The most depressing aspect of city cars' extinction is the absence of resistance. No major political party champions affordable mobility. No consumer organization campaigns for city car revival. No startup disrupts with modern interpretations. The death happened unopposed. Environmental groups, who should champion efficient city cars, instead focus on eliminating all private transport. They'd rather have no cars than appropriate cars. The absolutism hands victory to SUV manufacturers who position themselves as the reasonable alternative to car bans. Urban planners abandon advocacy too. Once champions of size-appropriate vehicles, they now accommodate whatever manufacturers produce. The profession that should shape transportation instead reacts to market forces they could influence but choose not to. Media complicity completed the silence. Automotive journalists review the 10th variant of some crossovers while ignoring the entire segment's disappearance. City cars don't generate clicks like supercars or controversy like SUVs. Their death wasn't newsworthy, just 22% of the market vanishing quietly. Even consumers who suffer most barely protest. Young people excluded from ownership blame themselves for not affording what's offered. Urban residents struggling with oversized vehicles adapt rather than demand appropriate options. The victims internalized blame for their victimization. Without intervention, the situation worsens. By 2030, industry analysts project city cars will represent under 2% of European sales, effectively extinct. The cheapest new cars will cost €25,000 in today's money. An entire category of mobility will exist only in museums. The social consequences multiply. Geographic mobility decreases as car ownership becomes luxury. Economic opportunity shrinks when jobs require cars people can't afford. Urban inequality intensifies as mobility access divides classes further. The European dream of democratic transportation dies completely. Chinese manufacturers will eventually fill the void, but at what cost? European automotive independence disappears, profits flow eastward, industrial knowledge evaporates, the continent that invented accessible motoring becomes dependent on others for basic transportation. Environmental goals suffer paradoxically. Forced to choose between expensive EVs and old combustion vehicles, people keep polluting cars longer. The perfect city EV opportunity, small, efficient, affordable, was murdered for quarterly profits. Emissions increased because greed eliminated solutions. The ultimate tragedy is reversibility. Nothing prevents manufacturers from building modern city cars profitably except shareholder expectations. The technology exists, the market exists, the need exists. Only willingness is absent. City cars died not from natural causes, but from murder by spreadsheet. Yet, hope flickers. Citroën's Ollie concept shows someone remembers simplicity. Renault whispers about reviving the Twingo as an EV. Fiat hints at Panda resurrection. Whether marketing manipulation or genuine recognition, acknowledgement exists that something essential was lost. Consumer power remains real, refusing SUV propaganda, demanding appropriate vehicles, supporting any manufacturer attempting city car revival. These actions matter. Markets respond to demand, but demand must be vocal, organized, and persistent. City cars represented European values, efficiency, cleverness, equality, and joy. Their death diminishes us all. But death isn't always permanent. Sometimes it just takes enough people saying we want them back to resurrect what greed killed. The automotive industry bet you wouldn't notice or care that affordable, practical, democratic transportation disappeared. Prove them wrong. Because a continent where only the wealthy drive isn't Europe. It's a betrayal of everything European mobility once represented. Did you realize city cars were vanishing? What was your first car, and could young people afford it today? Share your stories below, and if this opened your eyes to the automotive industry's war on affordability, hit subscribe for more unfiltered truth.